Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome back to Shochu'sday, episode 135. Kanpai to everybody out there around the world from both of us here in Japan. Uh, Episode 135, and we're going to focus today on some of the conversations we've had, very interesting conversations we've had with various shochu makers. But before we get to that, of course, how you doing, Stephen?
Good, Christopher. How are you? I'm on the mend. I was a little under the weather the last couple of weeks, and you sound great. Um, but yeah, back in the swing of things, back to work, back to play, etc. So yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to 2023. I'm an optimist, so I think it'll be a good year. Um, Exciting things planned. We got the Hanami coming back, which is great. If you don't have your tickets yet, you missed out on your early bird, but you can still get the mid
All
price.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
Sure.
was. I got my
And then
ticket. I
the
got my early bird for the first time. I missed it last year.
fantastic. Yeah, I don't think you're going to regret it. And it's going to be our. We had a great reaction to the early bird tickets. We already have more people ticketed than we've ever had in the past
Hmm.
for any of our previous versions. So it's going to be there's going to be a lot of interesting people there. We've got a huge crew coming up from Kyushu. Actually, like
Oh yeah.
it's more than half of the attendees currently. More than half? No, just under half of the attendees currently are
Uh,
flying in here from Kyushu. Isn't that
okay.
crazy?
That
Yeah.
is. That's wild.
So it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a good time. So if
Okay.
anybody else is interested in scheduling a trip to Japan in or Tokyo in particular in late March, and I understand that is a crazy time to fly here because a lot of stuff's going on. I mean,
Yep.
it's Hanami season, and everybody around the world knows that. And there's probably a lot of revenge trips that have been planned for a while that are finally going to happen. And university's about to start back up. So you get a lot of families, a lot of people, international students flying in.
Hmm.
So it can be a little hairy, but
Okay.
if you time
Guess
it
I
right,
should book my flight in hotel before too long.
I don't think that would be a bad idea. Yeah, it's good to get ahead on of this one. But yeah,
Maybe
we're
I'll take
looking
the
forward
train
to
up.
it. Could do that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm stoked. Anyway,
Cool. That's
uh, the
exciting.
first the first thing, let's see. I guess we can kind of bust right into the shochu makers interactions. And you were just out in Fukuoka. You want to give
So
us a little bit of
sure.
insight into what you discovered?
Yeah. I actually. Kayoko from Umami Mart is in Fukuoka until like 2 hours from now. I think she flies up to Tokyo, or
Hmm.
no, somewhere. I think it's Tokyo. Anyway, I'd never met her.
Oh yeah.
I'd only met her through Zooms and emails and that sort of thing because I've never actually been to their brick and mortar store in Oakland. I've known Yoko for a long time, but I've never met Kayoko. We did a podcast with them a few episodes back.
Yeah, middle of
I'll put
last year.
Yep. So if you want to learn more about Umami Mart, it's a good episode to listen to. Uh, but as soon as she saw me, like we were trying to find each other on the streets in Fukuoka, and as soon as she saw me, she just ran up to me and gave me a hug. So I felt like I
Hmm.
knew her. She's a sweetheart. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had a nice every that was on Monday, and everything in Fukuoka was closed on Monday because it was not
Bummer.
only a Monday, it was a holiday. It
Seiji
was
no hi.
coming of age day, so everyone dressed up in fancy dress and going out and that sort of thing during the day, and then at night, all of the local izakayas that I love and know, and all of the yatai were closed. So we just started walking and wandering, and lo and behold, Otsu was open.
Okay.
And now Otsu is a place I often kind of forget about
Uh
because
huh.
it's on the third floor of an office building in Daimyo, which is a neighborhood I used to drink in quite a bit, but now I have other neighborhoods I prefer. And Otsu was the first place I tried the 3Ms. So
Okay.
it holds a special place in my heart. And the we walked in and we were the only customers there the entire time we were there. We
Hmm.
had some great food. I can finally read a menu competently, so I was able to order good things rather than the things that I could read, which was my old demo. Um, and it turns out that it was the owner who was working, and I'd never met him. It's always been
Oh,
some part-time staff, some younger people who don't know shochu and that sort of thing.
right.
But he was very pleased to meet me. We had a nice conversation. He was really excited that we knew so much about shochu. And it seems like maybe for him to keep his business alive, he's kind of come back to work because I think for a long time he's kind of an absentee owner. And so I
Yeah.
think the food quality leveled up. The experience was much better than it had been the last couple of times I'd been there. So they're kind of back on my radar, which was
Okay.
nice. And Kayoko loved it. And then it turns out we then went to visit Kochan, a little
Okay.
bar, because she's
Yep.
always open except for Wednesdays, or when she goes off to Mexico or wherever she's going to go hang out. It turns
Uh
out
huh.
they know each other.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
How is that
Kayoko
possible?
knows because Kochan used to work at Todoroki's sake stand here in Fukuoka, and Kayoko had gone there and met
Holy
her, and
crap.
then I think after that, no, I think it might even been before that. I think Kochan was in the Bay Area for a while,
I feel like
and
I've heard about this before, but
yeah, so it turns out they knew each other, so it was like a reunion. Kochan was so excited because
oh boy.
I just texted her and asked if she was open, and she said, "Yeah, come on by." I didn't tell her what I was bringing, and I always just walk in with a random friend, and yeah, we had a nice evening, and
Nice.
then yesterday I had a bunch of meetings during the day, so I couldn't join, but at least not in the morning. But Kayoko went down and she visited Nishi Yoshida,
Yeah.
which is the first distillery I ever visited.
Okay.
Um, that was back in 2012. That I visited them in Kitaya on the same day, but I went to Nishi Yoshida first, I guess because they were closer to the train station. And so Kyoko Yoshida and her brother, who's the president of the company, they spent like 5 or 6 hours with Kayoko during the day, and then I got down there about 4 in the afternoon, and I could spend some time with them. Kayoko went back to her hotel that had an onsen and took a rest before dinner,
Okay.
so I could hang out with the Yoshidas for a little while, and it was great to see them and talk to them about what they've been doing and what they're up to and interested in. Um, and they're doing well. It seems like they're like everybody. It seems like they're trying to develop a gin. Um,
Yep. That's
they've got
right.
one
They
that's
are.
only available here in Fukuoka. Um, and I've had it in a couple of different cocktail bars, but they're now contemplating whether or not it's something they want to take outside of Fukuoka proper into the
Mm-hmm.
rest of Japan or even the overseas market.
Yeah.
Um, and then just other concept ideas. He's kind of he's like, I guess he's around my age, but carries himself much older, like
Mm.
more mature, I guess. And he he's he's just really forward thinking. He's really like not just thinking about what he can do to keep his business going, but what he can do to expand opportunities for shochu makers nationally.
Mm-hmm.
So we just had really interesting discussions around what are the ways that we can grow awareness and interest both domestically among younger people and also internationally.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's a lot of similar things to things that you and I have talked about in our various brainstorms. But he just brought a fresh perspective to it. That really what makes shochu unique globally, shochu, and he would include awamori in this, is the use of koji and pot distillation, right? And I
Yeah.
think you and
Single
I would
pot distillation. Yeah. Absolutely.
you and I would agree with that, and that makes it a unique distilling tradition worldwide. And how do we make that exciting for people? How do we make that uh, appealing and
Yeah.
get people to try it and not just try it but start to prefer it, to drink it? And it was funny. Before we had that conversation, I tried their Tsukushi Zen Koji, which
Yeah.
is Tsukushi is a brand. They've got the white and the black labels in the States, which is they're both made with black koji, but they're one's vacuum and one's
Mm-hmm.
atmospheric distilled. But their Zen Koji is 100% koji. Now everything they make there, not everything, but almost everything they make there is barley.
Yep.
So it's 100% barley shochu, very much in the Oita style or Northern Kyushu style. Their Zen Koji is really lush and
Mm-hmm.
delicious. And he looked at me. He's like, it tastes too much like koji, doesn't it? And I was like, I don't see that as a problem.
No, that's an
Yeah,
asset.
exactly. But he was worried about that. He thought it might have been too koji forward for a Western palate. Now, I might not be the average Western drinker,
But we're
it's a
not. We don't need the average drinker at first. We need the nerds
That's right.
first.
Yeah. But anyway, I realized like because of the things that they sell in the States currently, the Jaku and Baku has always been my favorite. That's the unfiltered or lightly filtered, 100% barley, really chewy, big sort of thing. And I tried them side by side yesterday, and I think I preferred the Zenkoji. And that may simply have been that moment in that mood. Maybe if I go back to them side by side in the future, I might flip it again, or maybe I find them equivalently beautiful. But I was very, very impressed with that drink.
Yeah.
Uh, so, and then the thing that I always kind of love that he always pulls out when he's got special guests is his tunnel aged barley shochu,
Yeah,
and
those
this
are
one had been
fun.
distilled in like 2005, and they aged them in an old train tunnel that is no longer in use, and a bunch of the shochu makers share that tunnel for storage. Um, and you almost never see it. It's a hard shochu to find. So when he tastes you on that, it's always nice.
Hmm. Yeah.
Got a little bit of that ceramic, it's all clay pot aged, and it was nice to come back to that. And it reminds me, I know of a couple shops here in Fukuoka that carry it, so I'll have to pick one up for home
Mm-hmm.
consumption. But yeah, no, and then it was actually the first time I actually, sorry, saying actually too much. It was the first time I'd had dinner with them in Chikugo.
Okay.
Typically, I've had drinks with them. They come up to Fukuoka for the night and hang out here. But since Kayoko was staying down in Chikugo last night,
Oh, okay.
I stayed for dinner and then I took a train home. But I didn't realize that there's a Shinkansen station that's only about 10-minute drive from the central
It's not that bad.
area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just took a taxi to the station and caught the train back, and I was home and in bed at a reasonable time, and it was a really nice
Sure.
evening. And he brought out he actually brought his own kurojoka in
Oh,
another
okay.
ceramic vessel, and he brought the heating elements, and like it's his friend's restaurant, so he just set it up on the table, and we had mai wadi he had made for us yesterday.
Nice.
The day before, he made mai wadi of two different shochu, and then we enjoyed that. We also had a little bit of local sake. We had some shigemasu um, sake to start because Kayoko was interested in local sake, and a great little izakaya,
Yeah.
like three tables and four seats at the counter kind of
Oh,
place. And
sounds fantastic.
yeah, it was wonderful. So I bookmarked it, and maybe when we head down that way next time, we'll make a point to go there. So yeah, it was a really really good reconnection with them. I used to see them a lot more pre-pandemic, and the fact that we live in the same prefecture, and it's only about an hour and 15 minutes by train from Fukuoka, so it's not a tough visit.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of making the time. But yeah, good to see them. They also I'll try to get the schedule from them. I think twice a year they do the open house for the distillery. At
One's
least they
got to
used to
be
do that. And
around
I think
Shinshu season, probably.
yeah, I think they do one in the spring and one in the fall, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. And they open up the distillery. You can come in. They have food vendors. When I went, I've only been to theirs once. I've been to a couple of different
Mm-hmm.
versions of this at different distilleries, but I went to theirs once, and they actually had a place where you could draw your own labels and you could make your own blend. So
That's
they had
cool.
different distillates, and you could blend it into what you wanted it to be, and then you could draw your label and glue it on your bottle and take it with
Wow.
you. So that was a fun little station they had. There were kids there drawing the labels for their parents and stuff like
Very
that.
cool.
So yeah, so I like what they do. And they're a short walk from the station. You probably need an appointment. They're not really open for like tourism, but with an appointment, I'm sure they'd be happy to show you around. And
Mm-hmm.
they both speak, I think, enough English to manage.
Yep.
Um, so a little shy about it, but I mean, but it's yeah,
They're in
good
better
folks
shape
down.
on that front than most, honestly.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, no question, no question. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Cool.
that spent my last couple of days. So how about you?
Went to. Was invited to an event in. Can't even remember the name of the station, but there's a bottle shop over in that area that I really like, and and then they were hosting this event with our friends Shoro and Nakamura, and so I went to say hi. Unfortunately, got to talk to them for quite a good deal of time towards the end, and the big thing that came up is of course the Moto Gusarebyo, which is obviously just a nightmare for the industry, especially as it tries to to prepare itself for more a real push into internationalization. So Yano-san, who is the
Can you define that for
toji,
us? Just so
moto
some
moto
people.
gusare is the blight that's affecting all the
Mm,
sweet potatoes.
mm,
And Yano-san was talking about how, unfortunately, Miyazaki Beni, which is really important to his production and his mash bills, is super, super susceptible to this
mm,
blight.
mm,
So he talked a bit about what's being done to prepare for the future, and they've got I can't remember. I think it was Ibaraki. There's a type of sweet potato that a lot of people eat up north called Beni Masari, which
mm,
happens to be pretty resistant to the current blight that is affecting all the Kogane, Sengan, and a lot of the other major strains. And
mm,
so they have gotten seedlings and they brought them down to area farms. And there's an increasing number of plots that are cultivating this new varietal of sweet potato that, while being a little bit unwieldy in the pot, is still very tasty, has a decent starch content, and actually in many ways mimics the
mm.
result of what you get from Miyazaki Beni, which is really a important strain for that part of Kyushu. So it was good to hear what he's thinking, and he's you can have like half a conversation in like 5 hours with that guy. It's amazing how easy to just keep going with him. So we were outside freezing our asses off in the cold, just like chatting away. And then it's like, why are we doing this out here? But it just so happened that we both had piled out there. And so it was interesting to hear some of the kind of on the, the street level
Sure,
analysis of
sure.
what's going on in the fields. And fortunately, both Shoro-san, Yano-san, and then also Shinya Nakamura, another close friend of ours, they do both work very closely with the farmers who provide them with their sweet potatoes. So
Hmm.
they know what's
Right.
going on.
Cool.
Yeah, and the question of the guilds came up,
Hmm.
and uh, and that sort of thing, and Nakamura, of course, mentioned that the toji before him
Hmm.
was the last of the Ata guild. He was the last
Oh,
surviving
interesting.
member.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was an interesting point, and so another always great to see them, and we're gonna hopefully see them next month. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
very
Very cool.
very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me actually of the sweet potato conversation. I want to get back to the Yatta Guild thing too, because we should probably try to pump him for information for
Yeah.
if we can scrape together an episode about them. But uh, I've always known Nishi Yoshida as a barley shochu maker, but I think as you when you visited them last time, they were making sweet potato. Is that right?
They were. It was the one
Yeah,
day a year
yeah, yeah,
when I happened to be there. The one day a year that they were making barley or making
yeah,
sweet potato. I'm sorry.
yeah. And I got to talk to him a little bit about that. He had me try it, and because I always thought that a lot of distilleries that don't, if they specialize in a specific style, if they're going to brand another style, they often are buying it in bulk from another distillery and bottling it, right?
Yeah.
And I had always assumed that that's what they were doing, but it turns out that at least one of their brands, and it's the only one we talked about, he's got a couple of different sweet potato shochus, but one of their brands is grown with local potatoes from that neighborhood.
Oh, okay. I
And
didn't know.
they're
I didn't realize that.
yeah, they're purple potatoes or red potatoes from that area that
Hmm.
they have their own name, and it's like his friend's farm from long ago, and they just keep making the shochu from that.
Wow.
Uh, and it's you get that hyper locality, but it's funny. He's like, it's a little bit roasty. You might not like it so much. And I tried it, and it had a lot of roasted notes. He's like, it's almost like a yakiimo shochu. He said, but we steam them. We just boil the hell out of the mash.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it's almost like Yanagita with his Aokage, where he's using his directional jets to caramelize the barley fermentation.
Huh.
At,
Yeah, that's what
at
it sounds like.
Nishi Yoshida, they're just really, really cooking that ferment to get some of the smokiness out of the potatoes.
That must be a pain in the ass to clean that still afterwards. But hey,
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah.
Put
More power to 'em.
throw a couple of smaller people in there to do it. And, jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think, no, we didn't, when we were there in early November, we did not try any of their
Hmm.
sweet potato. We only tried their barley, which,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what they're known for. I mean, that's
yeah. That
most
was,
of what they mean.
it's funny.
Yeah.
Just one final thing about the event that I was at last weekend. It was, and I've known this to be true, and you've known this to be true, but it was the first time to really kind of lean into it. This event took place at a little, what's the word? It's kind of like an exhibition space that has a cafe on the
Mm.
side, and the cafe tends to it specializes in very Indian influenced dishes.
Mm.
And this, so everything that they were almost everything they were putting out had these spices that you would expect. You can, when you smell it, you're like, ooh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun to see how well it played with imojoju.
Hmm.
Just, and
Hmm.
it makes, and of course we both know that that's true, but to try it with all of these different dishes that
Hmm.
were subcontinent inspired,
Hmm. Hmm.
and or the, just, I mean, in one way or another, and I'm not an authority on this exactly what's being borrowed and what's being embellished, but
Hmm.
it was a really nice synergy between the two.
That's very
And
cool.
yeah, and people were asking about other synergies, and I was like, hey, long grain rice awamori's got to play well here. and
Yeah.
and they're like, yeah, I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
So
Which shochu were they presenting with the Indian spices?
we had, it was kind of a choose your own adventure, but
Hmm.
both Shoro and Nakamura had five, six, seven of their brands each. For Nakamura, it was everything from teardrop to blue bottle,
Hmm.
and for Shoro, it was everything from his his shinshu, which is the type of shinshu that you would appreciate. It's really, really, it's the type of shinshu that I think you would have a second glass of. Is
Hmm.
maybe one way to put it.
Sure.
With a lot of shinshu being so gassy and so
Hmm.
abrasive, this
Yeah.
is not. And from that to, his black koji barley and everything
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
between. So it was a good spectrum of stuff. But because their products are so deep
Hmm.
and rich, and to be fair, most sweet potato shochu is,
Hmm.
they were very easy bedfellows, the
Mm.
food and the sweet potato
Great.
shochu. So that was a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know that was necessarily by design, but
Mm.
of course anybody in the room, and there were a lot of like proper shochu nerds there. Anybody
Hmm.
in the room was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great together, because
Hmm.
it just makes so much sense.
Sure. Sure. That's a interesting concept. When I eat Indian food, it tends to be my lunch, so I don't normally eat it at night. So I'm not drinking, but I have been in a couple of the curry shops here, the Indian curry shops in Fukuoka that have shochu on the menu, and I've always kind of been intrigued by like how did they decide to serve that, and how would it go with their food. And now maybe I gotta go make it an evening meal sometime and try it
Yeah.
out.
Well, and
Um,
the curry influences were minimal. There were a lot of
uh,
other dishes that were
gotcha.
influenced by what I was, what I guess the space, the main space that we were in is actually technically an NGO or an NPO. It's an NPO
Hmm.
where they sell some things from India, and then I think they do educational things there, and
Okay.
there's some I think there's some international connection in terms of the types
Yeah.
of exhibits that they put on. And then adjacent to that, right off to the side, is a cafe, which is
Mm.
same owners, but that is a separate business, and it's just a
Gotcha.
cute little kitchen that puts out pretty good food.
Mm.
I was impressed.
Kind of a
It
cultural
was,
center then, I guess.
yeah,
Then,
kind
yeah.
of really small,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
quite compact.
Hmm.
I think there might have been, how many guests? I guess there were five tables. There were about 20 guests there, five
Okay.
tables of four, two makers. Yano-san talked for about 5 minutes, and Shinya, they had to constantly remind him, was like, you have 30 minutes max, buddy.
Yeah.
He's like, I promise to be done in an hour. And everybody's like, what? He's like, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, I
Oh,
mean, he
man.
had that extra 25 minutes from Yano,
Yeah,
right? He
exactly.
could
So
go
he
for
could have done
55.
55. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's
That's
very much like Yanagita in that he gets into it. And then,
yeah,
yeah, you are,
right, for
and
sure.
you're not going to be bored. It's just like,
Right, right. Yeah, no, good stuff. I on the I guess non-Japanese food pairings with shochu. One of the conversations I had with the Yoshidas last night is we started giving each other restaurant recommendations.
cool.
Right. I was telling them places I like to eat and drink around Fukuoka that they hadn't heard of, and vice
Oh, yeah.
versa. And it turns out, and I'd had it bookmarked before, but I didn't have this realization. There's a quite popular Chinese restaurant in Nishijin
Okay.
that has about 30 or 40 shochu on the menu,
Okay.
and I think
I
that could
would,
be really interesting. I
I'm
think
sure it is.
next time you're in town, I think we got to go do that.
Absolutely. I love that idea. And
It's
I
actually
feel
right.
like I've come across that when I've
Yeah.
been over there
Hmm.
searching, and I was like, this is a pretty well-known place. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually right around the corner from that Okinawan izakaya that we pop into every once in a while.
Yep. Okay.
Goya.
Yep.
So yeah, good intel, and we'll definitely be checking it out. And yeah, and then the other thing was the other day I popped into one of my favorite little standing bars here in Fukuoka because I was a little peckish, and I used to go there quite a bit pre-pandemic, but I just haven't really spent much time in that neighborhood since then. But I popped in the other night, and they make this single serving pizza. Just a nice,
Okay.
it's just red sauce, cheese, a little bit of chopped onion or green pepper sort of thing, vegetarian pizza kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned, I think, recently to me, awamori, an Italian food.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ordered a zampa soda. So
Huh.
like
Okay.
nice light is the only awamori they had on the menu.
Okay.
Uh, but had that the zampa awamori with soda and had my pizza. And as I'm eating, the guy near me, a salaryman, was like, "Awamori an Italian food?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it goes together." He goes, "You must be a pro."
That's
He's like,
it.
I
Correct.
never would have thought of that." And of course,
Right.
the guy behind the bar knew me. He's go, "Yeah, this guy knows shochu." And then they were like, "Wait,"
Or
and
Aomori. Yeah.
then one of the part-time staff was like, "Is Zampa shochu?" And then the salaryman was like, "Oh yeah, it's shochu from Okinawa." I said, "No, it's awamori from Okinawa." He's like, "Oh,
Oh
you're
yeah.
right, you're right."
Yeah. Careful. Careful. You're
And then,
gonna
but
step on
then,
some toes.
but then the salaryman gets into this entire explanation to this young, probably college student about the differences between fermented or brewed beverages and distilled beverages and the higher alcohol percentages and regional variations in shochu production and
So
all that
he's a
sort of thing.
nerd
So
too.
yeah, he got a nice little education just because I ordered Zampa with my pizza.
Zampa and Za.
Yeah,
That's yeah, that's cool. And obviously, where possible, you're gonna want to go with something that's not vacuum distilled because you want those.
right.
You do
Yeah,
want those dairy notes from the awamori. I think
yeah,
Zampa tends to mute them a little bit, but
they do. It was a nice little match. I wasn't looking for anything too heavy anyway, so it's just a
yeah, fair.
nice little snack and because it was vegetarian, it didn't feel too guilty, and it was a small pizza.
That's
Yeah,
there's I think there's a cookbook there somehow.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Very cool. Well, we're at the 35-minute mark, so maybe let's click through a couple more banners if we can. Do you have any
sure.
newly opened or any bottle
I
kills?
I've got a couple of wild newly opens.
Okay, we're
I'm
gonna
just
click
gonna
over to that one then. I
I was
didn't.
gonna do
Yeah.
this one, but I think I'm gonna save this one till next week because you mentioned our friend, and I had I think if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I had Jake Parrott over for Oden, homemade Oden, the first time I made Oden at home, and because Jake Parrott is a spirits geek like us, I opened
Oh, nice. Okay.
the Teardrop 2021. This is Shinya's 38% alcohol limited
Shinchan.
edition. Yep, 37%. This is a 550 ml bottle, which is just odd to me, but
550.
Yeah, I think
Wow.
we've talked about this one before, where he actually is working with this pretty famous artist to do the
Yep.
labels, and
Hmm.
he owns the original prints, the original artwork, which he hangs in the distillery now. Ulala Imai is her name. But yeah, this is his amazing series number two, and it's a mouthful. It's a big big sweet potato shochu.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Great aroma. And I guess it's one of those ones that, as you like to say, is almighty, that it just plays well every way you drink it.
Yep.
Right. Soda, hot water, rocks.
A lot of his brands they tend to
Yeah,
be pretty
flexible.
flexible.
Yeah, yeah. It comes in
Yeah.
this nice little box. I have still seen these random bottles of this in liquor stores around Japan.
Oh, there's still a few left.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And these, I mean, they're 550 mLs for what, about 6,000 yen
they're
or so. So
pricey. Yeah.
they are pricey, but they're well worth the investment if you can track one down. I was surprised actually when I saw some the other day. Where was I? Might have been Todoroki had a bottle or two. Um,
Okay.
they're at their main store, not at the stand in Fukuoka City, but down in Southern Hakata Ward.
Yeah.
I forget the station near there, but they're pretty remarkable liquor store.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
I actually don't have any newly opened. I'm not sure I have any bottle kills either. I don't. I've been drinking really light the last 10 days or so. What day are we on? Yeah, the 11th. So it's been a pretty
You
quiet
you're
start to
doing
the
a
year for me.
dryish Ueri?
Not yeah, well, dry martini January maybe, but not really a true January. My dry January lasted about 12, 16 hours maybe, as it probably does for some. But no, I've just been trying to focus a little bit more on getting the number of hours sleep that I require,
Yeah,
which
sure.
worked like during the break and hasn't worked. Like
Hmm.
last night, I went to bed at 4 and got up at 7:30. So it's like it's not really gonna work, but I'm gonna
Right,
try.
right, right. Yeah,
And,
I've begun logging my drinks to actually it's just a tally. It's not what I was
it,
drinking.
I
I
think that's
just
a
kind of
great way to do it.
want to be aware
Hmm.
and make sure I'm not overindulging. Of course, when I've got visitors and they want to go out,
Not a whole
you
lot you
know,
can do other than
yep,
just drink more water.
right,
That's the one challenge is especially late in the night is to
right,
stay on the 1 for 1 pace.
yep,
A glass of something and then a glass of water. And you do not
yeah,
go for your next glass of hooch until you have that full glass of water. If you force yourself to do that even when you're starting to feel it,
hmm,
you will slow down. It'll slow you way the hell down. And it's
right,
good.
right, right,
So you just got to remember it. It's hard.
yeah. Well, I'll say the communal drinking out of a choko with a
That's hard to
kurajoka,
count.
it's hard to count, but it's very little. You
Fair.
drink much more slowly because you're not
Fair.
shooting it, right? You're sipping out of that little choco. It's like when we go to awamori bars and we're drinking in the kusu, we might
Out of a
try
thimble.
15 different kusu or whatever. That's probably an exaggeration. Maybe if there's 4 or 5 of us, but we might try
But
5 or 6 different
at least, yeah.
kusu awamori, and you don't feel bad the next day because you're having tiny little tastes rather than having like a big tumbler full and
Yeah.
drinking that at pace. You're
Uh-huh.
really taking the time and sampling each little bit, and
Yeah.
I think it's a good way of drinking. I'm coming around to the idea of that communal service tabletop, rather than ordering by the glass or and the problem is when if you do bottle service at an izakaya, you get the bottle of bucket ice in a tumbler because they want you to finish. They want
And
you to
then you're off
drink.
to the races, yeah.
Right, right. So the choco, the small cups with the service kettle is a nice way to kind of pace yourself, slow you down.
Yep.
So
And it's a more intimate experience
mhm,
because you're pouring for each other. It's a good
yep,
way to connect the group or connect
hmm,
whoever you're enjoying your drinks with.
yeah. You
I
have to be
love.
careful though, because when you're doing this with Japanese people, each time I lifted the kettle, then the Yoshidas would both shoot what they
It.
had left in their cup.
Yeah, right. You
Right.
gotta you gotta make it dry first before you can refill it.
Yep.
Um, I like the back to your original point. I like the counting drinks, and I think if you do that, obviously it's I'm well past I'm not drinking for however long. You know that I've tried that before, and I don't think it really changes behaviors all that much. What you do try to do is just control the number of units you take in
Yep.
on a given night, and counting is really good
Sure.
because
Yeah.
if you keep a tally and you're like, wow, I've already had 4, and I've only been here for a little over 2 hours.
Hmm.
Okay, that's gonna add up real quick. So
Yep.
then you pump the brakes, and then make sure that you only have one more over the next hour and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and see how you're doing after that, and then cane the water.
Right.
Just absolutely. And if they have it, like one of my favorite
Yep.
things about Yokabang down in Tenmonkan is she has that sparkling water tap right there,
Hmm.
and she's like, she says she doesn't charge for sparkling. I'm like, Reina, just charge me every night I come in here, charge a fee, because I'm gonna
Right.
drain half of that CO2 tank, like, because
Yeah.
I'm gonna drink a lot of sparkling, and sparkling fills up your stomach and it forces
Yep.
you to drink way slower.
Sure.
So
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's the other advantage to drinking either mizuwari or sodawari is you're
you're
getting
hydrating.
you're hydrating and you're
You're
getting
not
more dilution.
hydrating, but you're
Yeah, right.
diluting.
Right. So your drink goes further. Where if you go at pace on the rocks, it can be a little dangerous.
Yep.
Um,
No
so
doubt.
yeah,
This sounds like a Japan distilled episode.
yeah,
Moderate drinking practices from
right, right, right.
people who
Yeah. We
have it as an occupational hazard.
I think we should have had an episode coming out this week. Apologies to everybody. We haven't actually even decided what we're going to talk about on the next podcast episode. We have a bunch of topics we want to cover, but we want to make sure that we do them justice. And so we'll get one probably in the can this weekend and out next week.
I think that's realistic.
Cool. Maybe we just decided the topic.
Yeah, it might be. With the dry January influence, I think it is. I think
Yeah.
it behooves us to talk about that, and tactics for generally just having a smarter relationship with alcohol.
Yeah, sure. Because we don't want people to overindulge. Uh, because there are downsides to it. It is. I
Innumerable.
Yeah. Well, I just finished Proof, which you had recommended to me years ago, and I finally got
Isn't
around
that
to
such
reading
a
it.
great book?
That's a great book. And then I just started Doctors and Distillers. So I'm kind of going down this route of understanding kind of the science and the medicine behind a lot of the things that we do and love. And that just being aware, just understanding how your body's reacting. Right. His whole chapter on hangovers is great. And then all the medicinal origins of alcohol, which is what Doctors and Distillers starts out with, is
Yeah.
fascinating, right? Because a lot of them were tinctures and medicines that were used for various purposes, and they weren't intended to be sessioned, right? It was a little cocktail in the morning to get your day started, and that sort of thing. So it's interesting to kind of reflect on those aspects of the history and the science and medicine, and I'm sure I'll have lots more to say about that over the next few months as I plow through these books and reflect on
Yeah.
what I've
Proof.
learned.
This
Proof
is
is
a
great.
shout out to Proof by Adam Rogers. Great
Yeah.
book, everybody. Whether you're like a proper booze hound like we are, or if you're just, you like science, it's a very accessible run through of the foundational elements of making alcohol. And, there's a chapter on yeast. There's a
Yep.
chapter on aging. I mean,
Hmm.
and it's written in such a accessible way. I use that word twice now, but it's really easy to dig into.
Yeah, sure.
And you can almost approach the chapters out of order.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah, I don't.
recommend it, but you could.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, he goes through each of the stages of alcohol production, and then he gets into even those maturation and what the chemical processes are, what's happening in those casks
Yep.
or other vessels and that kind of thing. And then yeah, it's a really really good book. I'm glad I finally got around to reading it, and I think this year's going to be kind of. I got a lot of alcohol books on my last trip back to the
Yeah.
States, and I think I'm going to be bringing a bunch, like plowing through those this year. One of my New Year's resolutions, I made many. We'll see how many I keep. Is to read more. So I actually
Yeah.
I now log every day that I read a book. So just
Yeah,
like I'm logging
good.
my drinks, I just started logging things, my behavior, so I understand, and it helps reinforce, right? Like, did I read a book today? Did I floss today? Did I do some housework today? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just each of these little things that just reminds me, it's a little nudge to say, this is a good behavior. You should probably keep at it, right? And
Yeah, we are creatures of routine. So if you can
that's right.
establish a routine, it can stick after a while. What's
Sure.
the number of days that you just have to do it? What do they say?
Well,
I,
there's all sorts of theories. Just like 30
theories,
days makes a habit, or
something
four
like that.
four weeks
Yeah,
makes a habit. I've heard all
yeah.
this. 21 days makes a habit. Um, yeah, but like I kind of fell off on studying Japanese, so I'm back to you know studying
Get
Japanese
back on
every
that
day, and
horse.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
All right.
yeah,
Well,
cool.
I think yeah, we this one turned into a long one, but I think it was good. We covered a lot
Hmm.
of territory, everything from the discoveries of interacting with various toji and other people who work at the distillery to responsible alcohol consumption. So we will be back next week, of course. Everybody, episode 136 is going to be same time, same place, and yeah, please keep your eyes peeled for the next episode of Japan Distilled, which hopefully will drop sometime, probably early, hopefully early next week or mid next week.
Yep.
To everybody around the world, from both of us here in Japan, me in Tokyo, Stephen in Fukuoka, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.